Good morning. 4th. Wow. Um, I had a great weekend, and we got a lot done in the afternoon of Friday since we last met on May 1st. There was a letter that the Maine State Bar Association issued to Governor Mills requesting that we take a seat at the table regarding the legal services industry and make sure that we kind of have our inputs on any type of uh, opening checklist or badge, like we had discussed on Friday, that may be required for legal services. We just don't want to be caught off guard and have the governor provide a checklist to us that we aren't involved with. So we thought it was better to be proactive with that than reactive. We also sent a letter to Acting Chief Justice Meade asking to have more transparency, and my understanding that as a result of our association and the Maine Trial Lawyers Association also reaching out with similar issues to the judicial branch, that there is most likely going to be an announcement of a stakeholders group being set up this week for helping us all get back to whatever the normal is going to be in our courthouses. And also on our slide, you'll see that we just received an update from our Judicial Branch Communications Director, Amy Quinlan, that there was a modification related to filing for complaints for protections from abuse and protections from harassment. And primarily, I believe, I took a look at the link that she sent us. Primarily, it appears to be that they're allowing emailed complaints, that you can email your complaint and support documents to the court. With that, I did want to just oh, and also the court is also doing a good job posting updated court hours. They seem to change week to week, so please make sure you check the Judicial Branch website for those changing court hours. All right. That being said, Julie, are you on the line for?
I am. Hi, Thad.
Hi. Julie, I was just wondering, I know we're putting you on the spot. You gave us one of the latest updates that you put on the Judicial Branch website for PFAs and PFHs. Was there anything that you know about that addition that you might be able to share with us?
I really don't have anything to add other than what you stated. The changes mostly involve filing by email, which is a pretty major change. And that was added, the link you have there goes to the FAQs, which I think are fairly self-explanatory. But if anyone does have any questions, we encourage you to send them either to me or to Amy. And our email addresses are, I'm julia.finn@courts.maine.gov, and she's amy.quinlan@courts.maine.gov. Then we'll try to answer questions, and if it's a commonly asked question, maybe we'll add it to the FAQs. And then on the courthouse hours, I also just wanted to jump in and mention that that is actually a 2-week period that we have posted this time. So those hours will be in effect until May 15th.
Yes, I did notice that. Thank you very much, Julie.
Sure.
All right, we have a special guest, Jim Cohen, and I asked him to come and speak to us perhaps about any updates related to the cities that we might know of, and he is our legislative liaison too, any updates related to the governor's office. Thank you. Jim, I see you're on the line.
Yes, thank you, Thad and Angela and others. Great to see you. Hope everyone's doing well. Though I look like I'm in a law library, I'm not. The amazing wonders of Zoom technology. Just around the corner from Steve Schwartz, in fact, who appears to be in a nice downtown evening setting, which looks very nice. At any rate, a lot doing in Augusta with the legislature home and the state in a state of emergency. Pretty much all decision making now occurs through the governor, and so the administration is working hard to try to figure out how to balance keeping us safe, which involves physical distancing, and at the same time not killing our economy, which is a delicate balance. So the one takeaway is nobody's really happy. Some people wish that we were locked down even more and staying safe, and others wish that we were locked down a whole lot less so that we could get back to work. So there's been a lot of press. It's gotten more political. So I think the governor has come out within the last week with some philosophical approaches about how to balance safety and the need for the economy to move forward. That philosophy turned into a set of phased reopenings. The phases have timelines attached to them, but the cautionary note is all of that subject to change. So phase one had a series of types of businesses that can reopen. So basically, if you were allowed to open prior to May 1, you can stay open. Nothing has changed with respect to businesses that were allowed to be open. And that was in an essential versus non-essential dichotomy. Now the focus going forward is on safety as opposed to whether one is essential. If a business can open safely, even if they're not essential, then the goal is to allow those businesses to open. So while the order that came out says businesses such as fill in the blank, the actual order enumerates a half dozen or so types of businesses in different categories that can open. So that's, and it's divided up into some healthcare. So healthcare types of activities that are time sensitive and focused on safety as opposed to something that's elective, that can open up. Golf and disc golf courses can open up. Marinas, fishing, barbershops, which is necessary because if we're all going to keep looking at each other on Zoom calls, I think we really need to get to the barbershop and the hair salon as quickly as possible. So that allows us to stay home even longer. And
Jim, don't we even have to groom our dogs too?
Well, yes, dog grooming turns out is one of those essential services because we don't want ugly dogs on our Zoom calls either. So that's loosened up a bit. And there's a checklist. And so the checklist was put together at the end of last week. I suspect it's going to be a work in progress. And to a large degree, it's a self-certifying process. So if you go to the website, you are a particular kind of business, you find the checklist that relates to your business and look through and do the things that the checklist says. And if you are able to do those things, you can then separately go on to a separate voluntary login and say, I'm such and such a business. I am opening up in compliance with these checklists, and that allows you to download a file that you could print and attach to your door, kind of the COVID-19 seal of approval. It's called a badge. You could put it onto your website. So it's a voluntary self-certification process. And if you do those things, you can open. And those things include physical divisions within the workspace, continuing to have physical distancing, cleaning, personal protective equipment, face masks, all of those things. And with each business line, it's slightly different. The golf courses have some specific rules about how they'll open. So all of that is moving forward. So that's a positive for all those businesses. There are some number of businesses that are worried about opening and don't want to. And we've been certainly reading about hair salons who say, I don't feel comfortable opening, but I'm worried if I don't open, are my clients going to go to my competitors now because they are opening? So that's creating some angst within specific business lines. I think also that this phased approach has been put in place. It's really illustrated to the hospitality industry, whereas I think they were afraid about when and how they would open. Once they saw in black and white, oh, we can't open now for X number of days and weeks, and there's still going to be a 14-day quarantine requirement. How does that work? Can anyone realistically come to Maine, quarantine for 2 weeks before they can stay a night in a hotel? So the hospitality industry is very worried about what that means. So I'm expecting this week that there'll be refined guidelines issued, maybe that address the quarantine requirements, what that looks like. And I think we should expect this week, next week, and ongoing, just regular changes to these guidelines, a change in which businesses are able to open. And all the while, we're going to be looking at, is the curve still flattening? Is it rising? If we start seeing an uptick in cases that threaten the healthcare system, all bets are off. And what got allowed could quickly become not allowed. Now, for lawyers in particular, we've been considered essential all along. And like any business that is allowed, we can be open, but to the extent we're public facing, we have employees, we still have to employ those requirements of social distancing, face masks as appropriate, both in the workplace or with customers, keeping the workplace clean. People can go in for processing payroll and things of that nature. Now, some cities and towns had more restrictive requirements, and so Thad, you were mentioning cities and towns. Portland was one that actually had more restrictive requirements on lawyers. So at this very moment, unless a lawyer is engaged in something that is legally mandated, so presumably responding to a criminal process would be something legally mandated. There may be a few other types of activities.
One of these PFA hearings, for instance. Yes.
Exactly. My understanding is tonight, however, that the Portland City Council is going to be trying to conform to the state. And so the state has a pretty open requirement about lawyers being able to be in business. And so in Portland, whether you're a lawyer or any other business where the standards were stricter, the anticipation is there will be parity with the states. And there's some other communities, I think South Portland, Bangor, Brunswick had adopted some specific municipal requirements. And to some degree, I would expect many of those communities may start gravitating to just conformity with the states. So I think that's kind of where things are right now.
And I thank you, Jim. If we've got time for questions, people will definitely give us some. I wanted to. We went a little over, so we got about a minute left to finish the rest of what we've got on the slide. Angela, were there questions that came in while Jim was talking?
Just one about Little League Baseball, and I gave a suggestion about who he should write. But otherwise, nothing legally related, no.
As long as you sanitize the ball between every pitch, Steve, you'll be fine.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim. And if you're still hanging on toward the end, maybe there'll be other questions that come in too.
There is a question that just popped up about law firms opening in phase 2. Legal services are considered mandated an essential service, so they were allowed to be open previously, so they stay open.
Well, and there was also a in the preamble of stage 2. We had briefly touched on this on Friday. It does say with the governor's words, at least so far, it says that employees of law firms, as well as those of the state, may return to work. And I think that might have been part of what the governor was envisioning, but still it's going to require law firms engaging with their employees and coming to some agreements. Wouldn't you say that, Jim?
Yes, no, and every business is going to, whether they are open or, well, if they are open, will have to manage all of those pieces of safety and social distancing.
Right, and I did want to just add too, along with what Jim said, he alluded to this, if you go to the Department of Economic Development, of Economic and Community Development, thank you, website, you'll see that there is a general checklist, and there's also those specific checklists for each one of those types of businesses that Jim was mentioning. Thank you. And Angela, I wanted to turn it over to you for some business side updates.
At this point, the only thing I have is we've got quite a few, we have a guest every day this week, so hopefully you'll join us for those, for the rest of this week, because I think we're going to have some good talks.
Great. Thank you, Angela. And there are going to be, I think, from what I heard too, from the judicial branch, that there are probably going to be some new orders coming this week. So let's be on the lookout for those, and keep the questions coming. I know Julie mentioned sending them directly to the Director of Communications. They have asked us to also be a recipient of those, so that we can at least not inundate them with triple questions of the same type. On the personal side of things, I thought I'd share something that all of us might have been thinking, is that, in a lot of ways, a lot of us in the legal profession have made sacrifices to live and work in Maine. And this weekend is what I think got us all to thinking that it was no sacrifice at all to be living in Maine. So with that, are there any alibis, Angela, as far as last minute questions? No? Okay, we're good. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow with guest Bill Nugent and perhaps some more updates. Thanks.
Thanks.